This is my bedroom with its morning face on. We are currently selling our home, and I have 3 showings scheduled for this day. Actually, I had 2 showings scheduled, and then as I was cleaning, my realtor called and she said another one had been added. And so I had a very busy day on this day, and I knew I had to get it done as quickly as possible. Thankfully, 2 of my daughters who would be home, Yvonne and Crecia, said, whatever you don't get done, we will get done. So that made me feel so much better. But as I was doing this clean, and I really hope this gives you motivation for the to-do list that you have going, but as I was doing this clean, I was thinking, oftentimes I would stage my home in the morning. I use the word stage on purpose for company. Like if someone ever dropped by, I wouldn't feel badly about how it looks. So that's something I like to do in the morning, is just get the dishes set, get each room kind of tidied so that if anyone did drop by, I would feel fine. And usually if it's at that level, then I also feel fine. I feel much more at peace when my home is clean. But I was thinking, because I've been trying to keep it kind of quote stage ready for buyers as well, so that I don't have a big job to do on a day when I do get showings. But I was thinking, I am in love so much with my home. One of you had said, it's so loose and spacious, and you seem more at ease and happier with it. I have to say I am. I love how minimal it is right now. And that also got me to thinking about decluttering. I have been decluttering my home literally for years, and I feel like it is finally paying off. Now, if you have not been around my channel, and if you are new, then you do not know. By the way, my name's Karen. I'm so thankful that you are here. Here's a closet. I want my closets to look neat when people come. If you are new, then you do not know. We did rent a storage unit, and we did take some furniture out as well as our treadmill. And anything I told all the girls, and I told myself, like whatever I'm not going to use in the next few months or until winter, I could pack that up and put that in the storage unit as well. Look at that crazy cat. He sees an empty spot, he thinks it's his. So that has helped too, and I have to say, I realize from that I really do want to be on a minimal journey of only keeping the things that we need and that we consistently use. And I will be fine if there's not as much storage in our next home when we do move. We're moving to Vermont to be closer to grandchildren. We'll have all 4 of our grandchildren in one place once we do that, and we can be more involved grandparents. I really want to go while I still have my health. I'm 60 years old. But this is just, and I think as you age, I know this isn't true for everyone, but many of us who might have had a tendency toward not wanting to carry a ton of inventory in our home, we become even more minimal as we age because you just don't want to spend your time taking care of stuff. Time is just way too precious. But as I have been thinking about my decluttering journey, in my last video, I talked about all the different popularized methods of decluttering. And this time, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how you can learn from all the different ways that people declutter, all the different challenges they have, all the different games they play with themselves to declutter. Like I talked about in my last video that I will link at the end of this video. In case you missed it, you can watch it after this one. And today I just wanted to talk about how once you have learned all those methods or been exposed to them, then you can kind of come up with a hybrid that works well for you. I also think that combining methods help you to maintain your home because you're always going to be decluttering. And also, I want you to think about the fact that either once you declutter or maybe as you look at different areas of your home might call for different styles of decluttering. For example, with KonMari, you go by category. So if you're decluttering books, I feel like that's a really good area for you to, use her category method where you declutter all the books in your home. When you declutter your closet, I think that, there's initial decluttering where you're going through and you're pulling out things that you no longer need. And then the one in, one out method works really great for clothing. When you bring in a shirt, you get rid of a shirt. Whereas a one in, one out method, you might not feel is appropriate, say, for your books. Now, someone might say, but I think the one in, one out method would be perfect for books. Then yes, you should definitely use that for your books. That is the entire point, is doing what works best for you. Now, with clothing, maybe Swedish death cleaning isn't the greatest motivator when it comes to clothing, because you're thinking, well, in the event of my passing, I'm assuming that my family would just box up my clothes and donate them. But when you're talking about things that are more sentimental, that's when we start to think about Swedish death cleaning. Pictures and china that has been handed down. In our family, my dad had a very special guitar. The brand name is a Martin. It's a handmade, I think, guitar. It's valuable among people that collect Martin guitars. So, that would be an example. So all of these things that have kind of been handed down from generation to generation, those are the things we kind of want to deal with. What area of the house are they in? Are they buried under a lot of other clutter? And when it comes to Swedish death cleaning, you're really taking care of, that basement, that attic, areas where your children would have to go through all of these different items, and you're letting whatever is most important rise up out of that pile, so to speak. And also, choosing going area by area like Dana K. White does. I think if you hold a lot of clutter in the main areas of your house, it is completely understandable that would be a method that you would want to heavily consider. Is, if you see the dining room when you walk through the front door, or you see this, let's say you see the kitchen, and that kitchen table is piled over to where you can't even eat, it would make sense to go area by area and deal with that kitchen table, So combining different methods and not just using one method of decluttering can be the most effective way. I think the most important thing is not to get so hung up on which method to use, but just get yourself decluttering. But whether you use a timer, whether you make it a game, it's really like what really motivates you. Decluttering one thing on the first of the month, two things on the second of the month, three things on the third of the month. For one person, for me, for example, that was super fun and it was really motivating. But for someone else, the pressure might be too stressful. It might not be something that they enjoy. So you really kind of have to think, what kind of a person am I? Where is my biggest pain point for clutter? What is motivating me to declutter? And once you have those things kind of down, and I would really encourage, get a journal, get a notebook, and write those things down so that you have it. And then you can think, now where do I want to start, and what is most important to me, and what would work better for me and my personality. Some people will be very motivated to declutter with another person. Other people feel a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment, or they don't want someone else pressuring them to make a decision that they might not be ready to take on. For example, because people know me in my life, like they know that I have a YouTube channel, they know I've done a lot of decluttering, they've even seen me do some decluttering with other people, that can be pretty intimidating. They might not want me to come to their house because they think that I'm going to be pressuring them to declutter. And so having me come to the house, so first is, do I want someone to come help me? And then the second question is, who would be the right person to come and help me? A minimalist challenge might not be great for someone who wants to be a maximalist. Not everybody wants to be a minimalist. Some people like to have a lot of, the word tchotchkes kind of hits my head for some reason, but they want to have a lot of decor and a lot of things around them, plants, books, and they find it very cozy. I have kids in my home that do find having a lot of items around them cozy, and they find my home to be a little stark and sterile for them. Now, there are times of the year when I have more decor, and as you guys know, if you've been around, I used to do a lot of decorating around the seasons, and I'm probably doing the least this year that I have ever done. And who knows, maybe I'll feel more like adding more later. I just haven't felt that. And especially while I'm showing my home, I definitely want them to get to see the home they're buying. So it makes sense to me, but I am loving the wide open spaces, but I do have to be a little bit sensitive to those around me. And then as far as combining methods, maybe you're going to use the KonMari method of going category by category and keeping only the things that you hold in your hand and they spark joy, and the things you're letting go, maybe that's when you're bringing in the 4-box method, where you have one for donation, one for trash, one for recycling, one for relocation. Is that the 4 boxes? I'm trying to remember right now. But, but combining methods like that. Maybe the Swedish death cleaning is going to work best for you, and then you're going to mix it with the 20-20 rule of only keeping things or letting go of anything that is less than $20 and would take you less than 20 minutes to replace. Do you see how that works, that you can combine different methods? If you're doing an area, if you're going area by area, you might do area by area and then use the 20-20 rule and then use the 4-box method. So, one hard and fast way to declutter isn't necessarily what's right for you. I think most of us combine methods without even considering what exactly we are doing. Another encouragement I have for you is, if you try a method and it's just not working for you, don't feel like you're just not good enough, you're not doing it right. Don't let guilt derail you. Try another method and you might find one that works better for you. For example, maybe you love watching the Minimal Mom and watching all of her videos and gleaning from her, but what she does isn't going to work for you. Maybe what Dana K. White is doing works better for you, or a combination of the two. Or maybe what Dana K. White is doing, being limited by a certain space, maybe that doesn't work for you for whatever reason, but that's okay. Glean what you can from her, and then glean from others as well. But don't be afraid to try another decluttering method when one isn't working for you. You got to make it sustainable, So even if you're just keeping a box accessible that you can be throwing things in as you go, you might not even be able to set a timer for 20 minutes or 5 minutes. But when you're cleaning or putting away silverware, your eye might catch on to chopsticks that you have not used in months and think, what, I don't need the chopsticks. And so you can immediately throw those chopsticks in your box to declutter. Okay, so I'm doing a little pause on me cleaning and getting the house ready just to kind of show. My husband is out there fixing the deck, and the reason I chose to show this is what we kind of decided to do with the staging of our home. We had staged our home. We had gotten it ready to sell. We brought in a realtor. She priced it out based on, as is. It's not a fixer-upper by any extent, but it's also not a new build. So there's going to be problems with the home. And so we are still kind of pecking away at those things as we can, and it will just keep getting 1% better. So we have this baseboard that does have some support job to it, and it had just over time, years, warped. And it was caught by a building inspector, and they kind of thought it was a symptom of a larger problem, which we know it is not, because the larger problem he thought we did have like 10 years ago, and we fixed it. And we had someone who's an engineer come, and he helped us to just support the house, the porch, the deck, all the things. But since this was something that caught the eye, we are just going to go ahead and take care of it. And that's kind of how we're doing. And our home will continue to be 1% better. But you know, there just comes a time with a home, you've gotten it ready to sell, you've done the best you can, and it's like, okay, it's go time. We've really got to just get moving on this thing. And so that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to keep on doing. So you might see me do some little DIY projects, even though we are planning to leave. And my biggest job is really just keeping the house clean and scrubbed and decluttered. And then as I can pack, I pack. And as I can fix little issues around the house, we fix little issues around the house. There's no such thing as a failed building inspection. You know, an inspector's job is to find problems. They're going to write down the problems for you. You're going to decide if you're still buying the house. And that's kind of how it works. It's how it works for all of us. But you don't fail your inspection. You might be a little disappointed at things that they found. You might even disagree with them on things that they found. And we've just decided I can be bitter about it or I can be better about it. And I'm going to choose to be better. I'm going to choose to use those inspections. We've had one so far. If another one comes along, we'll just use it to inform us as well, because at the end of the day, if we don't end up selling, we'll end up staying. And I'm trying to, as I have improved the house, to make it a house I would love even more in the event we did end up staying. So the other thing that I was doing today, since we had appointments and stuff, I hadn't yet cooked to put a scent in the home, because I have since learned that even cooking smells, like food smells, that some people have a hard time with. So, but on this day, I knew our last showing was going to be at 4 o'clock, and so I did want to have dinner in the crock pot. It ended up being a good thing because we got home and the power went out, and I had beef stew all in the crock pot. It stayed hot for a couple of hours, and we were still able to have supper, so I was very excited about that. I'm making a very basic beef stew. I'm cutting up onion and potatoes and carrots, and I have stewing beef from the grocery store, and then I'm just adding beef broth, our favorite beef broth, and then salt and pepper, and that is supper. Now, whatever method you choose to help yourself to declutter your home, there also needs to be another plan, as I've alluded to maintaining the areas that you have already decluttered, because so often clutter can be like that difficult toddler. Do you remember when your kids were little, or maybe you are still there now, where you clean an area, you go to the next area, and meanwhile your young child is trashing the area that you already cleaned? Like, have you not been there? And that can really happen very easily also with decluttering. First of all, you have to be careful that even though you have decided to get rid of something, if it doesn't leave the house, it ends up being another pile that gets shuffled around. And so it would be very easy. Let's say that you decluttered your dining room, but you never actually got rid of the things. You know, to make your room look good that day, maybe you put a couple of boxes in your kitchen of things that came out of the dining room. Well, now your kitchen has boxes in it, you know, so you have to be careful that you're not just shuffling piles around, and that you have a clear plan on how to get those things out of the house and when they're going to go, and to be putting that on the calendar as well. And then you might want to plan a time to go back to the areas or rooms that you, or even little spots that you have already decluttered, to check in on those spots and to see if they need some tweaking. So, you know, you got to make that sustainable. Maybe in those areas you're going to do that seasonally, or maybe you're going to schedule mini sessions monthly. And maybe in those areas you're going to use the one in, one out method for new purchases. Maybe you're going to make sure that you keep a donation box or bag accessible to that area, so that you can easily just toss things in if anything starts to build up. But you know, you don't have to follow anyone's method perfectly. The best system is the one that works for you and that gets you decluttering. And it's the same with maintenance, you know, but you have to have a plan. You have to have a time and a schedule. And then, you know, it's one thing if you have to, for whatever reason, you know, reschedule with yourself, but it's kind of like having a dentist appointment, right? If you have a cavity, you're going to make a dentist appointment. If something unexpected arises and you have to cancel it, you're going to reschedule it. And you really have to reschedule with yourself. and be extremely intentional, because it's just one of those areas, if it was that easy to keep up with, you would not have a spot to declutter in the first place. So, it's, and like anything else, when it comes to money, if you're not intentional with your money, haven't you ever been through a weekend of just going here and there and your money just flows out of your fingers like sand? If you're not intentional with it, your budget's going to go to the wayside. It's the same thing with the items that you have in your home. If you're not intentionally decluttering and intentionally making a plan and a schedule, then it's easily going to grow back. That pile is going to multiply. Even if you got it down to a very small level, things multiply over time. For those of you who have done some decluttering in your home, let us know what method, what style works best for you. How have you implemented different styles and kind of mashed them together to come up with something that works for you? Do you like to work with a pal, or do you like to do it on your own? And I think that if you don't like to declutter with someone else, using a YouTube channel and decluttering alongside and shadow working together, is that what it's called? Mirror working? My brain, I'm telling you, it's nighttime for me right now, and I can't even think, but you know what I mean. When you're doing it alongside someone else, they may not even know you're watching their YouTube channel, but that can be super effective as well. And definitely for me, I won't be decluttering when they're decluttering. I like to sit and watch and let it motivate me. And then when the video is over, that's usually when I get up and declutter. But whatever works for you is what you should definitely do. Also, whatever method that you choose, I want you to first think, like, how long do you think, how many minutes can you declutter at a time? And if it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even if it's an hour, what you want to do is you want to pick a space that you can declutter in that amount of time. That's why I always suggest not taking everything out of a closet. I would never do the method where I would go around and get every piece of clothing and put it on a bed, because I don't have the bandwidth to be able to declutter until that's done in one session. And leaving a mess is discouraging, and for me, it would lead to burnout. For me, I'm going to take one drawer, one shelf. And I used to, oh my goodness, back in the day, I would decide to declutter one of my kids' bedrooms. And years ago, when I only had 3 children, there was a time they were all sharing the same room. And I can remember deciding to declutter their entire room. And really, in my brain, I wasn't even decluttering. I was reorganizing, but, getting rid of stuff too. I hadn't really refined my thinking enough around the idea of decluttering, and that you have to declutter before you can organize. Oh my goodness. And my poor husband would come home from work at the end of the day, and I will have successfully emptied out the entire closet, every toy bin, everything. And it would be like 6 inches high all through the whole bedroom. There would not be one spot to step, and he would be like, oh my goodness, what have you done? Now you would, of course, by that time I'm exhausted. I have 3 young children. There's just no way I can clean all of that up. Oh, the messes I have made. I have learned the hard way, and I have done it wrong so many times. I ran out of time, and I made a bigger mess than what I had to start with. So, oh my goodness, you have to declutter what you have time to declutter, and you have to count on the fact that you are going to be able to do less than you plan on. It would be better for you to cut that job in half and then go, oh, I have plenty of more time actually, and I have way more energy. I could do the rest of this shelf. I could do the rest of this drawer. I could do the whole bathroom vanity instead of doing one drawer. Wouldn't you rather have that as a problem instead of the problem of pulling out every single thing in the bathroom and ending up an exhausted heap, or being interrupted by something you didn't plan on, and now you have made a huge mess? So try to take it always in small bites so that you don't get overwhelmed, you don't get burnt out, and you don't end up making a bigger mess than what you started with. I would love to hear, what have you realized did not work for you over the years? Was there a time when you made a bigger mess and really had a lot of regrets on how you did that? I think it helps everyone. What have you learned along the way? What advice would you hand down to others? I would love to hear all about it in the comment section. I think it helps so many people. Let me share with you some of the comments I got from my last video that I find helpful. One was just plain encouraging from Silly Me Kimmy G. She said, "You have by far my favorite community of all the channels I follow. Everyone is so wonderful. I am so glad that God brought us all together. Even though you don't know me, I always feel like you are our friend, and I enjoy your videos. Such a comfort channel for me. I also love that you are a mom and a vlogger, but your children are not the focus. They pop on and off, but you are the star of the show, and I think that is wonderful as well. You are so real and authentic, and it always shines through." Thank you so much for those sweet and kind words, but I just want everybody to hear her say that it's her favorite community, and that is you guys, and I could not agree more. In fact, one time I did have a channel audit from someone who's very professional in the YouTube space, and they told me that my biggest advantage or asset here on my channel was the community in the comment section. And so I just want you to hear that and know that it is so very true. Let's see, Elizabeth Langham 7214 said, "I heard another way to weed out clothing, which I have used, and the clothes that were pared down. The trick is to put your categories together like short sleeve tops or casual dresses. Then start at one end of the category and just use the next item on the rack when you wear something from that category. The next time, wear the next item in that category. You can skip an item, but keep it next in rotation. If you skip the item 3 times when it comes to wearing something in that category, it goes out." Sounds weird, and I wish I could give credit, but I forgot where I actually heard it. It's surprisingly effective. And not only do I love that advice, but I wanted to mention it because that's another way to declutter your clothes. Like maybe Monday, you're decluttering all your short sleeve shirts. Tuesday, long sleeve shirts. You see what I mean? And break them down into categories, and that would make it much easier for you to do your decluttering of clothing. Our friend Joy said, "I think what method is best depends on the kind of stuff you are decluttering. For clothes, the hanger method is great. For decor, I use the container concept. For kitchen stuff, I like to ask myself, am I using it? How often? Is it worth keeping? I also use the container concept for my bowl problem. I love buying little bowls, but there is no more room and I'm not willing to let any of them go, so I'm done buying them. And then there is the fantasy self-declutter. I like that as well, especially for crafts and things that need repairs." Oh, I have found that too. There's been a lot of things I have decluttered because I had to realize that it was really for my fantasy self and I was not that person. Erin Bisson 918, and I'm sorry if I said your last name wrong, she says, "I'm a professional organizer and even I am not 100% decluttered. I am also not a minimalist. Every day, every item I use, I ask myself, is this item still serving me? Do I need a replacement or a backup depending on the item? When did I use this last? Before I purchase something, I ask myself, what is it replacing? Or if I don't have an item for that purpose, do I currently use something else for the same purpose? If I don't have one now, can I keep living without it? I always follow the one in, one out rule. I always go through the kids' clothes and school supplies prior to back to school shopping. We always have a declutter box or bag to fill in our entry. Recycling and trash is taken to the transfer station regularly. I have very little decor and I evaluate after every season. Everything has a home. If it doesn't fit in its home, it's time to evaluate what's in that space. Every year I declutter and organize my entire home top to bottom, as well as tackle tasks like deep cleaning, repairs, and painting. It's a 15-week challenge that starts the first week of January. This allows me to follow my daily routines and tasks. I do not spend more than 15 to 20 minutes a day on housework. If you do not allow messes and clutter to build up, it really is easy to keep your home under control." That is so very encouraging, isn't it? So I hope this was an encouraging conversation for you. Let me know if you like it in the comment section below. It will help me as we move forward. I love to show you the general cleaning that I'm doing in my home, especially while I'm getting my house ready to show and to sell. But I also want to keep it relevant and give you information that helps you. So the next video, what I'd like to do is talk about what doesn't work when decluttering and kind of give maybe a top 10 pitfalls of decluttering. Let me know what you think. I would love to know. Please share anything that, whatever has prompted you during this talk that you want to share in the comments. I would love it if you would. So it felt really good to get things all ready to show today. And I was super thankful for daughters who were able to finish it off for me. You'll see at the end how nice they made my living room. They also washed the kitchen floor, made sure that the cat box was all cleaned up, and make sure that everything was in, very organized fashion. So thanks so much for hanging out with me, spending this time with me. Remember, as always, God loves you. I love you too. And I can't wait to see you next time.